So Alaska just had its Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race, making it the 50th anniversary of this race. So for those of you who might not know, the Iditarod Sled Dog Race is an 1,100-mile long race from Anchorage, Alaska to Nome, Alaska. The teams racing in the Iditarod consists of one human driver of the sled. He or she is called the musher, and 12 to 16 dogs who are connected to the sled via a series of ropes or lines. And these dogs are forced to run in 8 to 16 days over a grueling 1,100-mile long terrain with jagged rocks and high winds and dense forest and in sub-zero temperatures. Their poor paws get raw, cracked, and bloody. The dogs often get sick. They get injured. They get extremely stressed and exhausted. They don't want to run anymore, but they're forced to run anyway. They can develop lung damage, stomach ulcers, kidney damage. They can get injured or killed tangled in the lines. Fractures of muscles, shoulder injuries, tendon tears are not uncommon. Frostbite, hypothermia can occur. You can check out the site called Sled Dog Action Coalition if you want to read stories of the horrible things that have happened to individual dogs related to this race. According to the site, at least 154 dogs have died in the Iditarod, and there are no records kept of how many dogs die in training or after the race each year. You can imagine what happens to the dogs in preparation for this race, can't you? Because we don't know. Or what happens to the dogs after the race, like the ones who got injured or sick during the race. What happens to them? Some say dogs who are deemed too slow to race or are unprofitable. I mean, that's the bottom line here, right? Those dogs are destroyed. An email from former musher Ashley Keith to the Sled Dog Action Coalition explains, quote, "When I was active in the mushing community, other mushers were open with me about the fact that larger Iditarod kennels frequently disposed of dogs by shooting them, drowning them, or setting them loose to fend for themselves in the wilderness. This was especially true in Alaska," they said, where veterinarians were often hours away. They often used the phrase, "bullets are cheaper," and they noted that it's more practical for mushers in remote parts of Alaska to do it themselves. Over the years, many animal lovers and dog lovers have objected to this race because of the animal cruelty and inhumane conditions, which is inherent in this contest. These dogs are literally forced to run, and in some cases, forced to run to death. If you care to, you can also check out the 2016 documentary called Sled Dogs by Canadian filmmaker Fern Levitt. This film examines the Iditarod and the commercial mushing businesses and raises allegations of animal cruelty among the breeders, trainers, and kennelers. But I'll warn you, it's really hard to watch and hard to want to learn about what really happens behind the scenes. Anyway, now that you know a little bit about the Iditarod, what happened this year? Well, according to PETA, in just this year's event, 2 dogs went missing. A musher was apparently forced out of the race after the dogs he used were found in poor conditions, and nearly 250 dogs were pulled off the trail due to exhaustion, illness, or injury. Before the race even started, dogs were attacked, and 1 dog was killed during training. So all of these things I just mentioned, it's not really new news because these sorts of things occur every year in the Iditarod. But what is new that happened this year is that 3 of the mushers participated in the race got penalized. Listen to this. For allowing their dogs to come inside sheltered cabins instead of leaving them outside in the harsh, freezing cold, blizzardy conditions. According to the Anchorage Daily News, 3 mushers were penalized for taking dogs inside shelter cabins instead of leaving them outside in the storm with winds so strong they whipped up whiteout conditions. A move they say likely saved their dogs' lives. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to us that you saved your dogs' lives because our rule number 37 states, and I'm quoting here, rule number 37 states, dogs may not be brought into shelters except for race veterinarians' medical examination or treatment. So To prevent dogs from dying in the ice-cold, sub-zero, windy storm, these 3 mushers were fined as their punishments by the Iditarod. You see, because allowing the dogs to rest inside, allowing them to have shelter from the storm, allowing them to sleep and not freeze to death, that gives these dogs an unfair advantage. So the Iditarod is okay with dogs getting hypothermia and freezing to death, and you'll be penalized and fined if you prevent dogs' deaths, because that gives them an unfair advantage. Can you believe this craziness? This is the Iditarod. And listen to this. This is good news. This is from U.S. News. Let's see. February 9th, 2022, U.S. News. The hotel that has served for nearly 3 decades as the Anchorage-based headquarters for the Iditarod Trail sled dog race will end its association with the competition next year. So this was the last year they served as the headquarters. The headquarters is where mushers register for the race and where competitors and fans base their Anchorage stays at discounted rates. Why are they ending their association with the Iditarod? I don't know. The hotel manager claims that the pandemic affected the hospitality industry, so it's not cost effective for him, something like that. However, it just so happens that last year, PETA and other animal activists and dog lovers held a protest outside the Anchorage Hotel, protesting the animal cruelty inherent in the Iditarod. So, it's interesting timing, isn't it? And it's also nice to note that the number of sponsors to the Iditarod race is shrinking. And compared to previous years, the entry fee was up and the purse was down.